Okay, day 450 of going live. We got a property. So let's just see, show you what I'm looking at. So today I'm filtered on 4-bedroom properties on Redfin, single family homes only. And I am looking for properties that's only been on the market for less than 3 days. Now, on this property, what we're looking for here is we're looking for the after repair value. So, what a property's worth after they are renovated. Now, this property is in Center Point. It's a little bit more quiet area northeast of Birmingham. Kitchen looks solid. I mean, you could have better hardware, but the kitchen is nearly rent ready. I would probably replace the flooring in one room, unless it's the that's part of one room. 2 rooms. This bathroom could use a little bit of love, but for the most part, this property isn't that bad. But because this is sort of rent ready, I mean, this would sort of be my floor, quote unquote. And the reason you want to look for after repair values is if you've been following what we've been doing live on YouTube, every single day we've been adding one property to our list. We've had all the properties that have been sold in the last 12 months, but now we're tracking properties that are coming onto the market by bedroom count, by zip code, because of the BRRRR strategy. So how does the BRRRR strategy work, right? It stands for buy, rehab, rent, refinance, and repeat. Now, with that approach, what you're going to see is that obviously you are going to look for the sold comps for your after repair value estimates, but as interest rates go up and down, you're going to notice that certain properties they come on the market at varying points and also at different dollar per square foot. And obviously, all your other factors matter, right? When it was built, this was built in 1958, so just write down these numbers. But this property is being listed for significantly less. 119, 200, whoops, 119, 200. So your dollar per square foot on this property is actually only $80 a square foot. So that tells me this is almost sort of a floor for a ARV estimate, right? Because for the BRRRR strategy stands for buy, rehab, rent, refinance, and repeat. And the whole point of why this strategy is so scalable is let's take an example. If you buy a property for $20,000, you spend $50,000, 50, on renovating the property, but now you're able to make the property worth 100 grand. Now you're able to go get a loan for 70% of what the home's value is. So you can get back $70,000, 70%, right, in the form of loan proceeds. Now you're able to recuperate that entire cash investment of $70,000, and now you're able to rinse and repeat and use that capital towards another property. Right, the whole point of the exercise is that you get paid back your capital. Will your cash flow be a lot lower? Yes, with addition to that service, absolutely. But the point is now you get to build your scale, and then you get to essentially hold a property for a risk-free amount, if you can even call it risk-free, because you get to keep all that capital, keep all the equity in the property, take back out all your invested capital, so you don't really have money tied in the property. But now you're able to depend on rent increases in the subsequent years to potentially generate more additional cash flow down the line. You probably might not make that much money on day one or even day or year one because of this exercise. However, you get to build your portfolio and scale it up because you keep getting to rinse and repeat and reuse the same pile of cash versus the alternative is what? You save up all your money for 20% down, then you work your full-time job and you save your money up again to do another 20% down. And that's why it takes people so long to scale the portfolio if they don't have an alternative source of capital or a method to rinse and repeat using the same initial investment that they had. All right. So obviously these factors all matter. 0.36 acres. There's no carport, no HOA, no basement. And I want to make sure I write down what neighborhood this is in by just clicking on a map, zooming out a little bit, and thinking that this is closest to Arrowhead. Arrowhead. So this is interesting, right? This property in Arrowhead is coming on the market at $80 a square foot, but there was another property that was being listed for $116 per square foot, also in Arrowhead. And this property is still on the market. So it's not has not been sold yet, right? So this is what I'm paying attention to, right? If you're depending on a certain ARV, active repair value, to be a certain value so that you can get back all your capital, well, you need your estimate for the after repair value to be as accurate as possible. Because if you are ever given an appraised value by an appraiser that doesn't meet what you are looking for, what comparable properties are you going to present to challenge that appraisal? and they're going to look for evidence of sold properties, right? So this is why it's so important because obviously comping is an art, not a science. And if you go across natural borders such as these creeks or big man-made borders such as these Route 65, 75, these main streets here, because now you're in completely different neighborhoods, and completely different neighborhoods drive certain and different valuation points, right? Okay, so now going forward, what we're going to do is now that we got this property in here, right? And the reason again you want to keep track of properties that are coming onto the market is because you want to understand what exactly is happening with mortgage rates. And as mortgage rates go up and down, your affordability goes up and down. So if you understand how 30-year mortgage rates really work, right? It's really driven by two factors. First one is the spread between the 10-year treasury yield and the 30-year mortgage interest rates. Historically, that spread has been between 1.5 to 2%. But now, I mean, we've seen as high as 3% spread in the last couple of years. And that's what drove interest rates really high. But also, as your interest rates for 10-year go up and down, that also directly affects your interest rate. So with the spread and the interest rate 10-year yield, that's what's causing it. And you can see from the last 12 months, you've seen as high as 4.7, which is right now, it's again approaching that high, and as low as 3.6, 3.7. So all these factors are going to matter tremendously. So just be really, really mindful of what's happening with interest rates and how is that affecting your dollar per square foot of properties that are coming on the market, because it will affect it tremendously. All right. So if I were to just analyze this deal, right, as is 119,200 for this property is 1486 square feet. Let's go to my rehab calculator. I'll put in 15 bucks for the roof. I'll put in 500 bucks for the landscaping. And I am going to assume I need to repaint just only half the home equals 1486 divided by 2. For my flooring, I'm going to assume I only need to do about 500 square foot of new flooring, LVP at $8 a square foot. I am going to replace one whole bathroom renovation to modernize it. And the other one, I'm going to replace just the toilet to make it a high pressure flush toilet to avoid any sort of clogged toilet calls, because that's what we have our properties right now, and we've never gotten a clogged toilet call. So that gives me total rehab about 20 grand. Not that bad. And for our rent, I'm gonna go to affordablehousing.com, go to the owner section, go to the market rent estimator, plug in the address, plug in bedroom count, and you're gonna see that the average rent for 25 units within a 1.6-mile radius is 1481. So that's a decent, a little bit higher, right? I've probably seen closer to 1400, but we can use 1481 because that's what's coming up on this search. And I'm gonna go look at our property tax estimate, which is 124. So I'll do equals 124 right here. And my homeowner insurance right here is about 92. So I'm gonna do equals 92 times 1.2. And I multiply by 1.2 because I'm adding a 20% premium. Typically, insurance companies view your assets as a riskier asset if you have an investment property. So that's why I'm adding a 20% premium, because I'm assuming that $92 estimate on the payment calculator right there is for a primary residence. So I have to make it a little bit more expensive to make it understandable. So the next item here I have is my maintenance number for 10%. So 10% of my rent is set aside for rent for maintenance every single month for future repairs such as your roof, your water heater, your HVAC, because that stuff is gonna break. Right? I probably made this mistake in the beginning of my journey where I probably underestimated the maintenance and how often we would be replacing things or fixing issues. So now you gotta set aside this money, because this money that you thought you were making. Let's say you get a $15,000 roof replacement bill, which is what we got for one of our other homes in Scottsdale. If you didn't set aside 150 bucks every single month for that roof replacement, and you get that bill in 100 months, now all of a sudden you would have thought you made an extra $150 every single month, when in reality you didn't, because that money doesn't belong to you, right? You knew that expense was going to come down the road, and if you're going to be holding that property, that should be money you're setting aside every single month. Okay. I got 10% set aside for my property management, and I got 5% set aside for vacancy expenses, which means this is the time when the house is going to be empty because you're either turning over the unit or looking for a new unit, right? Right now, we got a property in Alabama where it took about an extra 2 months just to get a housing inspector to come out there for the inspection so that Section 8 would actually approve the home, right? That's on top of the time it takes to find a tenant, show the home, etc. So all these factors matter, right? So now, assuming I put 25% down in this home and my down payment is equals to B4, which is my asking price, listing price, times my down payment percentage in F19, that's 29,800. So my finance amount is going to equals to my listing price, B4, minus my down payment. So I'll be financing 89 grand on this property. And I am going to use 7.5% interest rate on this property. So if I buy this property for 120 and I spend 20 grand renovating the property, and I'm going to rent it out as a 4-bedroom for 1481, this would yield $251 of cash flow a month. That's a 5.7% cash on cash return on your property. And this is assuming $119,200. So with a $20,000 rehab, down payment is 25% with a 7.5% mortgage interest rate. So that's how you figure out whether or not this deal is going to meet your criteria. Now, obviously, I'm not saying 10% is a magical number, and this is not investment advice. We're not soliciting any investments on this call. But let's say your target was 10%, right? Well, how much would you have to reduce the asking price by in order to meet that 10%? See what happens when I dropped it in 100 grand, went up a little bit. When you go to 90 grand or 95. So now you know, assuming my rehab is 20 grand and everything else stays constant, I'd be willing to pay 95 grand for this property, assuming everything else stayed constant. All right. So now 378, 4-bedroom, 1481. Now I'll do one more scenario for you all. Let's say your interest rate just dropped from 7.5% to 6%. So dropped 1.5%. That cash and cash return number just went up significantly higher. So now your willingness to pay goes up to 10, maybe you can go to 105. Yeah, so even at $105,000, so 10 grand higher than before, you're now willing to pay an extra 10 grand for that property, still using a 25% down payment, because your interest rate dropped from 7.5% to 6%. And that's how much of a factor the macroeconomic factors will contribute to your willingness to pay. Right? It went up by 10 grand just because interest rate dropped by 1.5 points. So you got to keep on top of what's happening in the market, what's happening in interest rates, because that will directly affect how you can stay objective to the numbers that you're seeking for the target return that you're looking for every asset. Right? Because some people, I mean, they might just want to buy. Some people will just say, hey, let me just break even on my property. If I'm in a high appreciating market and it's going up by 5% every single year and I bought $1 million property, who cares about making cash flow when it's going up 50 grand a year, right? Obviously, that's very speculative, it's very risky, but it's how other people build wealth. That's how they have a certain part of the portfolio allocated towards a certain strategy, not just cash flow. That's why you got to talk to your own investment professionals and see what strategy makes it work for you. Because most importantly, you have to understand what is your execution risk. What do I mean by execution risk? Do you think that person, that contractor, that he or she is going to show up on time and do exactly what they say they're going to do? That's execution risk. Because if you ever go through a period where you don't have someone come through and your holding cost gets extended, all these factors are going to drag down your cash and cash return number. Okay. All right. I hope you all have an amazing Monday. I'll see you all tomorrow for day 451. If you guys want to copy the spreadsheet, go to affordablehousing.io, go to the Get Deal Analysis tool, put in your name, email, your phone number. That's the fastest way for you to get a copy of the spreadsheet. I didn't make this from scratch. I got it from a few other folks. I modified it just so that I can analyze deals a lot faster. So I hope you guys are able to take advantage of it, analyze the same deal I analyzed today, and then put it on your own YouTube channel, because at some point someone's going to ask you, why do you think this is a deal? And you can say, I think this is a deal because I've been looking at properties for the past 450 days, and they were all not deals. Might that give you some confidence that you know what you're doing? I certainly hope so. All right. I'll see you all tomorrow. Have a good one, everybody.